Holy Wire Mod.
Holy Wire Mod here. This is going to be tutorial 13A in the Lewis series where we're going to cover vgui elements, and specifically we're going to focus on the Derma Frame. So yes, we're going to be doing buttons and things like that in future videos. However, right now I want to make sure you have a good foundation on this topic. So we're going to start by getting rid of all the stuff we did in the last tutorial, as we don't need it. And the method we're going to do is very similar to in a game mode how you see an F4 menu. They'll press F4 and a menu pops up where I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to start with function gm and show spare 2, if you recall from the last video, is F4 button. So whenever somebody presses this F4 button, now we're going to be combining it with tutorial 11 in this series, which is networking. So we're going to add a network string, and we're going to call this string F4 menu. Okay? So now we're going to start the net message. So we got F4 menu, that's going to be the message we're starting, and we are going to send it to the player which pressed the F4 button. Right, so if any of this confuses you, I recommend checking out those tutorials that I referenced. So that's all you have to do on the server side. So we're sending a server message to the client now, so we have to set it up to where the client can receive this net message. And we do that with net.receive. The message we are receiving is the F4 menu message, and we're going to make it do this function. Now, we're not worried about the length. You notice length right here. Don't really care about length for this, so I'm not going to bother putting it. So what you need to do now is create a conditional check. All right. So we're going to say that if our frame does not exist, so that's pretty much what this is saying. Does the frame exist or not? Then, if it does not exist, then we're going to create it with this command. So we're going to say that the frame that at this moment does not exist will exist with vgui.Create. Okay? And we are creating a specific vgui element for this argument. Now, there's a list of elements right here, vgui elements. And right now, see, we're going to focus on dframe. And as I said, I'm going to be getting into a bunch of other elements in future tutorials. But for right now, we're just focusing on the frame. Okay? So there's other arguments here that you can do, like assigning what this frame is going to be parented to, and assigning a unique name for this frame, but we don't really need that right now because this is going to be the frame which other things will be assigned to if you do it this method. So let's start with something very simple, because now we can set up attributes for the frame by saying frame, or whatever this is called, with the colon, and we'll say set size of the frame to 1000 width and a height of 720. Okay? Now another basic property is to set the position. So we can do that with set pos. And let's just say we want it at 100, 100, something very basic right now. Of course, you can use, screen width and screen height. Screen width and screen height. But right now, we're just going to keep it simple with something like 100 by 100 pixels. Okay. The next thing, say we want to set this frame so where it is visible. And we'll say true, so that'll make the frame visible when we call it. And also, I'm going to say MakePopup. Make a pop-up. And what this does is it sets it to where if your frame has been called and it's popped up, you're no longer allowed to press things like F4 or your walking keys. All your binds will not work when the pop-up is active because it's allowing your keyboard to be used as an input for text boxes that might be in the frame or something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to keep it very simple. And also, one last thing I want to include is for when we do close it, I want it to be deleted. So we're going to SetDeleteOnClose. Otherwise, it will just hide it and make it invisible. Okay, so let's go in game really quick and we will see what all this does. Alright, so I'm now in game, and let's press the F4 button, and we have a menu that just popped up. So this is the menu. You can close it with pressing X, and then pressing F4 again, it will pop up again. Now notice actually if you get rid of this local, it will not pop up again, so it's very important that you make the frame local, okay? So anyway, let's look at some more attributes for this frame that we can do. So instead of setting the position, now I'm going to set it to where it's centered, okay? So I'll save that, and let's press F4, and now it's exactly centered in the screen, which is very useful, so you don't have to do calculations and whatnot. You can set if it's actually sizable, as we set the size, so let's put that right here. So we say frame set sizable. We'll put that to true. And when I do that, now I press F4, and now I can resize it like this. See? Ooh, all fancy. But there's no minimum value or maximum value that you size it to at this moment. But we can define those things with these commands. So you'll say SetMinHeight, and we'll say the minimum height, we want it to be 100 pixels, and we can say SetMinWidth, and we'll also set that to 100 pixels. So when we press F4, now it will not go any less than 100 by 100. So that's a very useful function. Now, if you want to make it to where, for example, let's see, if it's draggable at all, like you can actually prevent that too. So let's say frame set draggable, and let's say don't want it to be draggable, so set false. So I click it, and now I cannot move the top bit or the frame at all. So that's how you do that. Now there's a bunch of other things you can edit, I mean, such as the title. So we don't like that title, and we'll say my new title or whatever. I know, so creative, right? So now it says my new title. Now there is shadowing and whatnot as well, and we can enable and disable the background shadow, like so let's say frame set paint shadow, well, not paint shadow, paint shadow, and we'll put true. So it'll have like a little shadow effect, but that's only when we use the paint. So painting is going to make the panel look a little bit better than it does right now, because you can just see it's a bland gray menu. It's nothing exciting. So let's give it some excitement. Let's say frame dot, and remember it's a period, not a colon. So we'll say paint and function. Now you have self, which is referencing what you're painting, the width and the height of the frame that you're painting, and we'll say end. So this is in reference to draw, which again, why I did this before doing this tutorial. So we're going to draw a rounded box. Set 0, so it's going to be perfectly square. It's not going to have rounded edges. These you can set to 0. The width and the height of the box will be the width and the height, which have been set right here. So this function will automatically grab these values and insert it here for you. And the color, let's make it a red looking square box, okay? And make it transparent too. So now if I press F4, now we have a red transparent box. You can actually hide the close button at the top, but I'm not going to do that just yet, so I'm still able to close the menu. So let's say frame, and to do that you go ShowCloseButton, and you can do true to keep the button, or false will disable it. Like I said, I'm going to keep it to true so it can still use it. So there's other things you can do as well. Let's set this to false real quick as well before I forget. So as you can see, very minute difference. There is now no paint shadow on it. And other than that, there's a bunch of other things. You can actually close the frame. So as soon as we open it, we can close it. But remember, it's SetDeleteOnClose, right? So it's going to delete it instead of hide it. All right. So let's go and press F4, and now F4 doesn't make the menu appear because it's closing immediately after creating it. All right. So pretty much I think that's going to be all the things that are really necessary for you to understand. Of course, you can actually get these values as well instead of just setting them. So generally, if it has a set, you can say you can get if it's sizable, and that will return a true or false, right, whether or not it is sizable or not. So in this instance, it would return true. And also, you can get the minimum height and the minimum width, and things like screen lock, which is another useful thing I didn't cover, but yes, you can set the screen lock, which will lock the screen for you. And there's a bunch of other things which are mentioned in the wiki, which I did not necessarily cover. So this is going to give you an idea. I personally prefer not to use D-frames. I like something which we're going to cover in next tutorial called panels. And until that tutorial, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you then.